The Galactic Observation Initiative was widely regarded as the most boring assignment in the entire Unified Cosmic Federation. Just ask Lieutenant Commander Pyx, who had spent the last 3 solar cycles documenting the primitive species of Sector 7G. Log date 3472.8. Pyx dictated to his neural recorder while absent-mindedly adjusting his translucent blue tentacles. Continuing observation of planet designation Sol 3, known to natives as Earth. A largely unremarkable water world populated by bipedal mammals called humans. His research vessel orbited Earth at a safe distance, cloaked by technology that made it appear as nothing more than a passing meteor to Earth's rudimentary detection systems. The ship's interior resembled a cross between a laboratory and a college dorm room, with holographic displays covering the walls and several empty food containers that Pyx had been meaning to recycle. Pyx's assistant Neeble hovered nearby, her gelatinous form pulsating with excitement as she monitored the data feeds. Unlike Pyx, who had been stuck on this assignment for years, Neeble was fresh out of the academy and still found everything fascinating. "Sir, I've detected an interesting specimen for today's field study," Neeble bubbled enthusiastically. Her form shifted from translucent green to bright yellow, indicating her excitement. Pyx rolled all 3 of his eyes. "Another one of their cats. I swear, if I have to document one more feline-human interaction." "No sir, it's one of their wilderness explorers. The humans call them hikers. This one is isolated in a region with minimal technological support, demonstrating remarkable navigational skills without reliance on their primitive GPS systems." Pyx drifted over to the display, his interest marginally piqued. The human in question was trudging through a densely forested area, consulting nothing but an antiquated paper map. "Not entirely worthless data," Pyx admitted. "The Federation is particularly interested in how these fragile creatures manage to survive despite their obvious physical limitations. No natural armor, pathetic sensory capabilities, laughable muscle density, and yet they're the dominant species on their planet." Neeble chimed in. "Only because nothing truly dangerous evolved alongside them." Pyx scoffed. "Put one of these humans against a Regillian frost tiger or a Betelgeosian swamp beast, and they'd be nothing but a smear of organic matter. Protocol suggests a closer observation might be warranted," Neeble suggested, her form now pulsing with a professional blue hue. Pyx checked the research quota on his terminal. He was behind on his observation metrics for the month, and Field Commander Zorb had been sending increasingly threatening messages about his performance. "Fine, prepare the observation pod. We'll take a closer look at this human in their natural habitat." Pyx activated the ship's descent sequence. "But we maintain strict non-interference protocols." The last researcher who contaminated a primitive culture spent the rest of his career cleaning exhaust ports on a methane mining colony. As their vessel descended through Earth's atmosphere, neither Pyx nor Neeble noticed the small alert blinking on their sensor panel, a warning about unusual predator activity in the very region they were heading to. It was an oversight that would drastically change the course of their mundane research mission. And somewhere below, completely unaware of the alien observers about to enter his life, 34-year-old Park Ranger Doug Henderson was having what he would later describe as a pretty normal Thursday as he hiked through Cascade National Forest, blissfully ignorant that he was about to become the subject of an intergalactic incident. Doug Henderson had seen a lot of strange things during his 15 years as a park ranger. Lost hikers wearing flip-flops on mountain trails. Tourists trying to take selfies with bears. That one guy who insisted on camping with nothing but a Swiss Army knife and a philosophical treatise on minimalism. But he'd never seen anything like the glowing blue disk that now hovered 6 feet above the forest floor. "Well, that's definitely not in the Ranger handbook," Doug muttered, adjusting his worn Forest Service cap. He stood rooted to the spot, clutching his walking stick as the disk silently descended. With a soft hiss, a seam appeared in the disk, and 2 figures emerged, if you could call them figures. One resembled a blue octopus that had decided to try life on land, while the other looked like a pulsating heap of lime jello that someone had left out in the sun. "Greetings, Earth specimen," the octopus-like creature said in perfect English, though its mouth, if it had one, didn't move. "I am Lieutenant Commander Pyx of the Galactic Observation Initiative. This is Junior Researcher Neeble." The jello blob wobbled excitedly. Doug blinked slowly, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a half-eaten granola bar. "I must be having one of those low blood sugar hallucinations Dr. Mendez warned me about," he said, taking a bite. "The human appears to be engaging in nutritional supplementation," Neeble noted with fascination, her gelatinous form rippling. Remarkable how they must constantly refuel their inefficient biological systems. Pyx waved a tentacle dismissively. Primitive metabolic requirements. Note how it requires processed sustenance even for minor physical exertion. Doug stopped chewing. I can hear you, you know. Pyx's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. Fascinating. Its auditory capabilities exceed our projections. Okay, either I'm having the most detailed hallucination ever, or I've just made first contact with aliens who talk about me like I'm a particularly uninteresting zoo exhibit. Doug said, putting away his granola bar. Either way, this is way above my pay grade. We apologize for the breach in observation protocols, Pyx said, not sounding particularly sorry. Our cloaking technology must have malfunctioned. We are merely researchers studying your species' survival mechanisms. Don't mind him, Neeble bubbled enthusiastically, floating closer to Doug. He's been stuck on this assignment too long. I find your species absolutely fascinating. The way you've adapted to your environment without any natural advantages is remarkable. Doug crossed his arms. Natural advantages? I'll have you know humans are incredible long-distance runners. We used to chase down prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Yes, Pyx said, with what Doug assumed was the alien equivalent of an eye roll. Your endurance is moderately impressive for such a fragile species, but surely you acknowledge your many deficiencies. No natural armor, dull senses, limited strength. Before Doug could defend humanity's honor further, a low, rumbling growl echoed through the clearing. All 3 of them froze. What was that? Neeble's form shifted from excited green to a worried pale yellow. Doug's expression turned serious. Mountain lion, big one, by the sound of it. He slowly reached for his radio, only to find it wasn't there. He'd left it in his truck, confident he wouldn't need it on this routine patrol. A native predator? Pyx asked, suddenly interested. Perfect. We can observe how you employ your species' famous tool usage and social coordination to defend against threats. I'm a lone genius, Doug whispered, and I don't have a gun or bear spray, just this walking stick and a pocket knife. Pyx's tentacles drooped. Then statistically you're likely to become prey. Another growl, closer this time. Doug could see movement in the underbrush about 30 yards away, a tawny shape slinking between the trees. The mountain lion was stalking them. Can't you guys, I don't know, beam us up or something? Doug hissed. Neeble's form trembled. Our vessel is in autonomous orbit. The observation pod is our only means of transportation, and its defensive systems appear to be malfunctioning along with the cloaking technology. Of course they are, Doug muttered. Pyx was furiously tapping on a device wrapped around one of his tentacles. This is unprecedented. According to our database, this mountain lion is an apex predator in this ecosystem. Its physical capabilities far exceed those of your species. Without your technological advantages, your survival probability is less than 12%. Thanks for the statistics, Doug said dryly. Super helpful. The mountain lion chose that moment to emerge fully from the underbrush. It was enormous. At least 180 pounds of pure muscle and predatory intent. Its amber eyes locked onto the strange trio, tail swishing slowly as it assessed the situation. Observation note. Pyx whispered to his recorder. Human appears to be experiencing elevated fear response as it confronts superior predator, preparing to document inevitable outcome. Doug shot him a glare. You know what? I'm getting real tired of being underestimated. By cats, by my ex-wife, and now by talking seafood from outer space. The mountain lion crouched lower, preparing to spring. Well, Doug said, rolling up his sleeves and gripping his walking stick. I guess it's time to show you why humans run this planet. The mountain lion's muscles tensed like coiled springs beneath its tawny coat. Time seemed to slow, as Doug assessed his situation with the calm clarity that comes from years of wilderness training and that one weekend wilderness survival course he'd taken after his divorce, the one his ex-wife Carol had called your midlife crisis in cargo pants. Is your species capable of rapid movement to evade predators? Neeble asked, her gelatinous form quivering with genuine concern. We could retreat to the observation pod, Pyx suggested, already backing away. The human's demise will provide valuable research data on predator-prey dynamics. Doug shot Pyx a look that could have seared a steak. I'm standing right here, you insensitive calamari platter. The mountain lion growled again, a sound that rumbled through the clearing like distant thunder. Doug knew the cat was evaluating them, looking for weakness, and unfortunately they were presenting plenty. Both of you, stop moving, Doug commanded in the authoritative voice he usually reserved for tourists attempting to feed Cheetos to bears. Movement triggers their prey drive. Neeble immediately solidified her form. Pyx, despite his earlier bravado, froze so completely that a passing bird landed on one of his tentacles before realizing its mistake and fluttering away in confusion. Now listen carefully, Doug continued, never taking his eyes off the predator. When I give the signal, I want you two to slowly back toward your flying saucer or whatever it is. Observation pod, Pyx corrected automatically. Not the time, buddy, just back away slowly, no sudden movements. The mountain lion shifted its weight, muscles rippling beneath its fur. Doug knew what was coming next. He'd seen it before, once with a rookie ranger who'd panicked and gotten himself treed for 6 hours. The difference was, Doug wasn't planning to spend his afternoon in a pine tree being mocked by an overgrown house cat. What will you do? Neeble whispered, her normally bubbly demeanor subdued by fear. What humans do best, Doug replied grimly. Improvise. The mountain lion launched itself forward with explosive power, covering the distance between them in a heart-stopping blur of fangs and claws. Pyx emitted a high-pitched squeal that would have embarrassed a dolphin, while Neeble contracted into a tight, terrified ball. Doug, however, didn't flinch. With a fluid motion that belied his stocky frame, he pivoted to the side and swung his walking stick, connecting solidly with the big cat's shoulder. The impact diverted the predator's trajectory just enough to send it crashing past them into a thicket of undergrowth. Go, now, Doug shouted, already positioning himself between the aliens and the temporarily stunned mountain lion. Pyx didn't need to be told twice. His tentacles worked in blurring coordination as he scrambled toward the observation pod. Neeble followed, her form shifting into something resembling a terrified water balloon with eyes. Activating emergency protocols, Pyx called out, frantically manipulating controls on the pod's exterior. The defense shield should. A shower of sparks erupted from the control panel, followed by the unmistakable smell of burning circuitry. Pyx's tentacles drooped in despair. Let me guess, Doug called out, keeping his eyes fixed on the rustling undergrowth where the mountain lion had disappeared. More malfunctions. The technical term is catastrophic systems failure, Pyx replied miserably. We're experiencing a cascading quantum disruption in our primary and secondary operational matrices. So broken, beyond repair, Neeble confirmed, her voice a tremulous wobble. Our communication array is also non-functional. We cannot contact our main vessel. The mountain lion emerged from the bushes, looking decidedly unhappy about the walking stick to its shoulder. It circled warily, reassessing its approach. A low, continuous growl rumbled from its throat as it fixed its amber eyes on Doug. Well, that's just perfect, Doug muttered, tightening his grip on the now cracked walking stick. Any other helpful alien technology you'd like to not help us with right now? Pyx was frantically tapping on his wrist device. According to our biological database, this predator possesses superior strength, reflexes, and natural weapons compared to your species. Its bite force alone is sufficient to crush your cervical vertebrae. Again, super helpful, Doug replied through gritted teeth. Don't suppose that fancy database tells you how I can beat it. Beat it. Pyx's 3 eyes blinked in astonishment. The statistical probability of an unarmed human defeating a mature mountain lion in direct combat is approximately 0.0073%. The mountain lion chose that moment to charge again, this time with more caution but no less deadly intent. It feinted to one side before lunging toward Doug's legs. Doug's walking stick shattered as he blocked the attack, leaving him with a jagged wooden shard in one hand. The mountain lion swiped a massive paw, catching Doug's jacket and tearing through it like tissue paper. Observation note, Pyx dictated to his still-functioning personal recorder as he cowered behind a boulder. Human subject demonstrates remarkable reaction time, but will undoubtedly succumb to superior predator within approximately 47 seconds. I can still hear you, Doug shouted, narrowly avoiding another swipe that would have opened his abdomen. The mountain lion circled again, looking for an opening. Doug's breathing was controlled but heavy, a thin line of blood trickling from a scratch on his forearm. The shredded remains of his ranger jacket hung from his shoulders. Your situation appears non-optimal, Neeble observed helpfully from her position behind Pyx. Doug didn't reply. His eyes had taken on a different quality now, a focused intensity that seemed to burn with something primal, something the aliens had never observed in their clinical studies of humanity. You know what? Doug said, his voice eerily calm as he discarded the broken stick and rolled his shoulders. I've had a really bad week. My supervisor's on my case about missing paperwork. My ex-wife is demanding more alimony. And now I've got 2 aliens and a mountain lion ruining what was supposed to be a peaceful Thursday patrol. He reached down and picked up a fist-sized rock with one hand, pulling out his pocket knife with the other. So let's try those statistics again, Doug growled, as the mountain lion tensed for another attack. Because I'm about to show you what humans are really capable of when pushed too far. The mountain lion charged, a blur of muscle and fury. Time seemed to slow for Doug as adrenaline flooded his system, his senses sharpening to a knife's edge. This was the moment where statistics and probability meant nothing. This was pure survival. From their hiding spot, Pyx and Neeble watched in horrified fascination. Recording all biological responses, Pyx whispered, "This will be the most detailed documentation of human predation ever compiled. Shouldn't we help him?" Neeble's form rippled with distress. "With what? Our advanced technology is non-functional, and our physiologies are not adapted for combat," Pyx replied. "Besides, scientific objectivity requires non-interference." "That's convenient," Neeble muttered. As the mountain lion lunged for his throat, Doug dropped to one knee and thrust upward with the rock in his hand, catching the big cat under its jaw. The predator yowled in pain and surprise, its attack thrown off balance. Doug rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding a swipe from paws that could disembowel him with a single strike. "Remarkable evasive maneuver," Pyx noted clinically. "The human demonstrates unusually quick reflexes for such a metabolically inefficient species." Doug scrambled to his feet, knife held ready as he circled with the predator. Blood trickled from scratches on his arms, but his eyes never left the mountain lions. Man and beast locked in an ancient dance of predator and prey. Except Doug had no intention of being prey. "You're probably wondering how a squishy human like me is still alive," Doug called out to the aliens without taking his eyes off the cat. "Let me educate you on some Homo sapiens history, while I deal with this oversized tabby." The mountain lion charged again. Doug feinted left, then pivoted right, slashing with his knife. The blade caught the cat's shoulder, drawing a thin line of blood. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters," Doug continued, his breathing controlled despite the exertion. "We can't outrun most predators, but we can outlast them." Pyx was rapidly inputting notes into his device, so the constant threat of predation created evolutionary pressure toward problem-solving and improvisation rather than specialized physical adaptations. "Something like that," Doug agreed. "Plus we're just stubborn as hell. My ex-wife would confirm that." He knelt beside the pod's control panel, examining the damaged circuitry. "You know, this doesn't look too different from the communications equipment we use in the Ranger station. Different components, sure, but similar principles." Pyx's tentacles waved dismissively. "The quantum neural interfaces are far beyond your technology. No offense intended." "None taken," Doug replied, already pulling tools from his belt pouch. "But circuits are circuits. And if there's one more thing humans are good at, it's fixing stuff we don't fully understand." To the aliens' astonishment, Doug began methodically repairing the damaged systems, occasionally muttering to himself or asking questions about specific components. Within 20 minutes the control panel lights flickered back to life. That's impossible," Pyx stammered, all 3 eyes wide. "You have no knowledge of our technology." Doug shrugged. "I don't need to understand how it works to see what's broken. Besides, I restore vintage radios as a hobby. This isn't so different, just more squid-like." Neeble's form had shifted to a deep purple of respect. "We have seriously underestimated your species' capabilities." "Story of human history," Doug replied with a grin. "We're used to it." As the observation pod hummed back to life, the 3 unlikely companions sat in the clearing, the mountain lion's body a silent reminder of what had transpired. Doug shared his remaining granola bars with the aliens. Neeble simply absorbed hers directly through her membrane, and they talked. Doug explained human history, the countless times smaller human forces had defeated larger ones through sheer determination and ingenuity. He told them about the space program, how humans had reached their moon with what amounted to calculators and aluminum foil by galactic standards. He described how humans consistently pushed boundaries of endurance, from ultra-marathons to free-diving records that defied physiological expectations. In return, the aliens shared stories of the cosmos, of civilizations that had evolved under conditions Doug could barely imagine. Throughout it all, Pyx continued to update his database, occasionally muttering phrases like remarkable adaptability and unprecedented problem-solving capabilities. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the trees. Pyx announced that their main vessel had acknowledged their signal and would retrieve them soon. "Well," Doug said, rising to his feet, "it's been interesting meeting you folks. Not how I expected my Thursday to go, but definitely memorable." "We owe you our lives," Neeble said, her form glowing softly in the dimming light. "How can we repay you?" Doug thought for a moment. "Maybe update that database of yours. Let the rest of the galaxy know that humans might be worth taking seriously." Pyx's tentacles formed what might have been a salute. "Consider it done. I will be submitting a comprehensive revision of our species assessment immediately upon our return. Though perhaps," Neeble added with a bubbling chuckle, "we should omit the part where you fixed our unfixable technology with Ranger Station repair skills. Some things are better left as surprises." Doug agreed with a wink. Above them, the air shimmered as a larger vessel began to decloak. As a beam of light engulfed the observation pod and its occupants, Pyx extended a tentacle toward Doug. "Farewell, Park Ranger Doug Henderson. Your species has impressed me. That doesn't happen often." Doug shook the tentacle firmly. "Come back anytime. Maybe call ahead next time though." As the aliens disappeared in a flash of light, Doug was left alone in the clearing, with the body of the mountain lion and a story no one would ever believe. He pulled out his radio, which he'd retrieved from the observation pod where Neeble had been studying it. "Base, this is Henderson. You're not going to believe what I need to report." The Grand Council chamber of the Unified Cosmic Federation buzzed with the nervous energy of 24 different species. Holographic displays flickered around the circular room, showing data streams and images of Earth from various observation points. At the center podium stood Lieutenant Commander Pyx, tentacles neatly arranged in the formal presentation posture, while junior researcher Neeble hovered nearby. High Chancellor Vorblax, a being composed primarily of crystalline structures that chimed melodiously when she moved, leaned forward from her elevated seat. "Lieutenant Commander, you've submitted a request to completely revise our classification of species Sol-3 Alpha, colloquially known as humans. The Council requires an explanation for such a drastic reassessment." Pyx cleared his throat, or whatever passed for a throat in his species. "Honorable Council, our first-hand observations have revealed critical inaccuracies in our current understanding of humans. They are not as previously classified, moderately successful omnivorous primates with limited physical capabilities." "What would you classify them as then?" asked Councillor Zept, whose gaseous form swirled with skepticism. "Apex predators," Pyx stated firmly. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some council members shifted uncomfortably. Others emitted sounds of disbelief. "Preposterous," huffed Councillor Glorg, a massive amphibian whose skin glistened with bioluminescent patterns. "Their physical attributes are unremarkable at best. No claws, minimal natural armor, dull senses, inadequate speed." "With respect, Councillor," Pyx interrupted, "our traditional metrics fail to capture what makes humans dangerous." He gestured to Neeble, who projected a holographic recording of Doug's battle with the mountain lion. The council watched in stunned silence as the human fought, bled, adapted, and ultimately triumphed over the predator. When the recording ended, the chamber remained quiet for several long moments. "This specimen appears exceptional," High Chancellor Vorblax finally said. "Perhaps an outlier." "That was our initial assessment as well," Pyx admitted. "But subsequent research revealed something even more concerning." He activated another holographic display showing humans engaged in various activities, running ultra-marathons, free diving to impossible depths, surviving in extreme environments from deserts to Arctic tundra. "Humans routinely do things that should be physiologically impossible for their species," Neeble explained enthusiastically. "They push beyond their biological limitations through sheer force of will. Furthermore," Pyx continued, "they possess an unparalleled ability to improvise with available resources." Another hologram appeared, showing Doug repairing the alien technology. This human fixed quantum neural interfaces with primitive tools and pattern recognition alone. "Concerning, yes," conceded Councillor Zept, "but hardly justification for classifying them as apex predators. Their technological development remains primitive by Federation standards." Pyx's coloration darkened. "Chancellor, honored Council, there is one more factor you must consider." He hesitated, tentacles twisting nervously. "Humans are the only known species that hunts for sport." The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. "Clarify immediately," demanded High Chancellor Vorblax, her crystalline form vibrating with alarm. "Throughout their history, humans have hunted animals they had no intention of consuming." Pyx explained, They developed specialized weapons and techniques, solely to demonstrate mastery over other species. They created elaborate rituals around the act of killing. They displayed deceased predators as trophies. The council fell into uneasy silence as the implications sank in. And yet, Neeble added, her form brightening, they also demonstrate remarkable empathy. The same human who killed the predator later expressed regret over its death, explaining that he would have preferred to avoid the conflict. They kill for sport but feel remorse. Counselor Glorg's bioluminescent patterns flashed in confusion. This is contradictory. That is precisely what makes them dangerous, Pyx said. Humans are living contradictions. They are simultaneously predator and prey, brutal yet compassionate, logical yet driven by emotion. Our traditional classification methods cannot account for a species that defies consistent categorization. High Chancellor Vorblax's crystalline form refracted light as she considered the evidence. What is your recommendation, Lieutenant Commander? Pyx straightened to his full height. Based on our findings, I recommend that Earth be designated a Class 4 restricted contact zone. Furthermore, I suggest immediate recall of all observation teams and the implementation of enhanced cloaking protocols for any necessary future missions. You believe humans pose a threat to the Federation? Asked Counselor Zept incredulously. I believe we do not yet understand what humans are truly capable of, Pyx replied carefully. And in my experience, that is the most dangerous situation of all. The Council deliberated for 3 full cycles before reaching their decision. Earth was officially designated a restricted zone, and a new directive was issued to all Federation vessels. Avoid direct contact with humans until further notice. 6 months later, on Earth, Doug Henderson sat at his desk in the Ranger station, filling out paperwork for a recent bear relocation. His radio crackled with a call about hikers feeding squirrels near the Eastern Trail. Just another normal day. The scars from his encounter with the mountain lion had faded to thin white lines, barely visible unless you knew where to look. Sometimes he wondered if he'd imagined the whole alien encounter, but the strange shimmering device Pyx had left him as a communication beacon in case of emergencies suggested otherwise. As Doug reached for his coffee mug, he noticed something odd outside the station window, a brief distortion in the air, like heat waves on a summer day. He smiled and raised his mug in a salute to the empty air. Thousands of miles above, aboard the Federation observation vessel Discreet Inquiry, Pyx nearly dropped his monitoring equipment. They can detect our presence despite the enhanced cloaking technology, he exclaimed. Beside him, Neeble's form rippled with amusement. I told you they would. In the small cabin that served as the ship's mess hall, the newest addition to their crew, an enthusiastic xenobiologist named Dr. Krex, was reviewing the updated human classification file. Is it true? She asked as Pyx and Neeble entered. Did one of them really defeat a Class 3 predator with a primitive cutting tool and no defensive technology? The file is incomplete, Pyx admitted, settling into his hydration chamber. We've barely scratched the surface of understanding humans. The most fascinating part, Neeble added, her form glowing with excitement, is that they have no idea how extraordinary they are. Most humans believe themselves to be unremarkable. Can you imagine any other species so blind to their own capabilities? On one of the mess hall screens, a news broadcast from Earth played silently. A human was scaling an impossibly sheer cliff, with nothing but small handholds and determination. Another human was diving to ocean depths that should have crushed their fragile bodies. A third was running across a scorching desert, pushing through what should have been insurmountable biological limitations. The Federation believes restricting contact is the safest approach, Dr. Krex noted, her feathered crest rising with curiosity. Do you agree with that assessment, Lieutenant Commander? Pyx watched the silent montage of human achievements, remembering the moment when Doug Henderson had stood bloodied but victorious over a predator that should have killed him by any reasonable calculation. I believe, he said carefully, that when humans eventually join the galactic community, the rest of us would be wise to remember one crucial fact. What's that? Asked Dr. Krex. Pyx's gaze remained fixed on the screens showing these remarkable contradictory beings pushing the boundaries of what should be possible. Never tell a human something is impossible, they take it as a challenge.